7. So no, it's out the JW. It's for Todd Pletcher, the horse trainer. So I'm just going as Millicent's date. I don't know if we're going out afterwards or not. All right, sounds good, bud.
Hello, Harry. How's it going, man?
What you been up to?
Cleaning dog hair, fucking everywhere, man.
What's going on here? I don't understand. What's different? I thought you always had dog hair.
I know, but we were sitting watching TV last night, and my phone fell in the couch, and went to go pick it up, and it was just covered. So I made my mind up that I was cleaning this morning with my day off. Yeah, who doesn't want to do that
on your day off?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the call from Harry that it's really not your day off.
No,
even though it is your day off. That, hey, can you just come on? There he is.
There we are. Hey,
there's the man.
How's it going?
The myth.
Good. How are y'all?
Legend. How's it going, Jake? Welcome to BeerNet Radio, our little big podcast, I like to call it. But
hit it big,
Jake. So Jordan, I ran into Jake just by chance at Down on Grayson. Imagine that. And I noticed, I won't say who he was with, but he was sitting with a prominent distributor. So he came over and said hello, and the distributor said hello. And so afterwards he came over and he dropped off a couple of samples of his one of his products, which is a spritz, a CBD hemp. Jake, tell us who you are and what you do, so I don't fuck it up. And I'm going to turn my dryer off.
I am Jake Hill. I've been in the cannabis industry for about 10 plus years now. Pretty entrenched on all levels between, I own a vertically integrated company in Oregon. I started out in a garage, growing medically in California back in 2010, and then kind of migrated into the legal industry there, and entrenched myself pretty heavily on all levels between technology and all different kinds of processes and processing, kind of technologies. And then eventually I got involved into the hemp industry because hemp and cannabis are pretty much the same thing. And then created this seltzer product after we did a launch with the WB Liquors with a kind of a line of different products like your typical tinctures and pre-rolls and, things of that sort. But we figured that the way to go would be to create this drink. And that's where we came up with the Delta-8 version and a CBD version of a seltzer based off cannabis-derived and hemp-derived terpenes and Delta-8 THC and CBD as well.
That we're in Texas, so we're not a recreational state, but hemp-derived CBD products are allowed. And curiously enough, Delta-8 THC is still allowable in Texas. And, it's just one molecule different really from, I guess, the real THC, but it kind of hits different. I mean, I have not been talking to my mic the time. Jordan, it hits different. I like it. There's a lot of confusion, I think, between what is THC versus CBD versus Delta-8. I mean, I know you're not a biochemist, but can you kind of walk us through the subtle differences?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, like you said earlier, it's just basically a one molecule difference from the Delta-9 variant of THC. THC has all kinds of different molecular variants that you can derive from the plant naturally. So what happened with how Delta-8 kind of came legal here, accidentally is what I like to call it here in Texas, is when the Texas Department of Agriculture passed their hemp legislative bill. They actually allowed or legalized all cannabinoids derived from a hemp-based plant or product. And well, you can derive the Delta-8 and Delta-9, CBD, CBV, all kinds of different molecules from CBD and hemp itself through some natural processes. And to your point, if it's a hemp-derived product like Delta-8, it's legal under the Texas Department of Agriculture's code.
Every state's going to be wildly different, and this is going to be fun to cover. So And actually, Jake, when I saw you at the restaurant, I was just gotten off the phone with a guy named Day who works at Arlington Capital. He comes from investment banking background, and he was talking to me about it's so hard to do business because everybody talks about, well, you don't have banking, but okay, fine, that's a pain in the ass. Everything has to be cash. But what other people don't get is you can't write anything off. You can't write off expenses. So that's, I'm just kind of going because I'm sorry if a lot of our readers, including me as a reader and a writer, are just confused, and I'm still on the learning curve of getting my brain around this. And as we move, everybody keeps saying, oh, it's going to be federally descheduled, and yeah, fine, but we really don't know what that's going to look like, A. And B, even if it does, the states are still going to have all different laws. Interstate shipping is going to be an issue. And so in other words, we've got a long ways, I think, before we figure it all out. But with that always comes opportunity, right, Biscuit? Wherever there's chaos, there's opportunity. So
the biscuit.
That's right. You got to risk it, Biscuit, to get it, Biscuit. All right. That happens to be your name, so that works really well there, Jake.
That's perfect.
So how, I know you contract with our friends over at Alamo. I ran into Eugene in California a few weeks ago. I haven't seen him in years. I have to go to California to run into a San Antonio guy. But so how's that been going? And I know Jordan has questions too.
Well, before you answer that, Jake, let's back up just a little bit because it ties into Harry's question with Alamo. But to clarify, everything you do down here in Texas, you have to grow here in the state. I know you have operations in Oregon, but you can't take any of that cannabis down here, correct? And so what does that operation look like? And then, taking it to Eugene and them, what do you hand them? What do they do?
Yeah, very good question. So that's absolutely right. There's a big difference between the cannabis program in Oregon and the hemp program here in Texas. Personally, I like to think they're the exact same because if you look at a hemp plant and a cannabis plant growing in full flower and they, are done correctly, they look exactly the same. So that's where the whole law kind of just gets a little weary. But everything that just to follow everything to the exact T, everything that we do produce here in Texas gets processed here in Texas, and then is transferred over to Eugene, for example. If we create our end product, which is this Delta-8 product, Eugene would provide the water, but we provided the hemp-derived terpenes, the formulation, the CBD nano-emulsified product that goes into it, or the Delta-8, product that fills this can. And that's how they, then from there, they produce the can off the line, and then it's ready, if that answers your question.
Where can you sell these beverages here in the state?
From a legal standpoint, anybody on a retail level is allowed to sell them. So right now we're selling them through the Western Beverage Liquors. There's about 33 locations throughout the state and several bars locally in San Antonio. This is on the Delta-8 and CBD side. Of course, we're trying to now expand the CBD market from the seltzer standpoint, just because there's not a big presence on the CBD seltzer side. And that's going to be a market that's going to be, I think, a more corporate friendly product, because it's, drinking these CBD seltzers, you don't have the chance of testing negative or false positive on a drug test. Kind of, you have the possibility with the Delta-8 products to get what they call a false positive, not necessarily a full positive for the Delta-9 molecule. And that's a little bit confusing, but you still have the risk from a corporate standpoint of popping for a Delta-8 product, which is why you're seeing a lot of companies like, the bigger distributors and bigger name brand grocers and C-stores kind of stray towards just CBD only products.
It sounds like that HEB, obviously very conservative, or Circle K, they have too much to risk at this point, and I would imagine the distributors. So are you just kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for things to loosen up a little bit?
Yeah. So what we did with the initial Delta-8 and CBD launch that we did with the WB, I wanted to do it kind of what I like to call a skinny capital start. I didn't want to invest, all this money into all these CBD products and then, be stuck with a bunch of inventory. There's a lot of the biggest CBD companies in the world and the nation right now are struggling pretty bad with just having inventory. They can't sell like these tinctures that this is a very, anybody can really make this product kind of thing. So
it's kind of commodity, or
yeah, it's a very
whoever
commodity
can make it
style.
cheap.
Yeah, and like everybody can kind of make this product versus a seltzer being more unique. What we did with the WB launch was kind of fill out the market. What were the items that were constantly selling, or what were the items that were piqued the most interest? One of them was smokables, pre-rolls. These look like cannabis joints, but they're little cigarette replacements, and they're hemp, and they're totally legal. They are made and grown here in San Antonio, Texas. And, that's a product that we kind of felt out. We launched at first along with the myriad of other products. And we got a good feel of what the market wanted. And then from there, I've worked with bigger, being in the cannabis industry, I've luckily had the opportunity on my automation side to see bigger publicly traded companies kind of playbooks and see like what they're doing. And some of the bigger companies, their main playbooks for when they want to enter the United States involves drinks. And that's because everybody's making products like the tinctures and, gummies are kind of a rare, but a lot of people are doing them. But drinks are still a very unique niche. And when it comes
It takes a little more capital to do it. The barriers to entry I could see would be higher because you have to have a canning line and a tanks, and it's not just something you can just drop in a tincture bottle. That's a good point. I don't think we've really addressed that, because we've always kind of been like CBD and THC beverages may be a big thing, but also maybe not, because it's heavy relative to its price, relative to the amount of THC you get.
Yep.
So the shipping is expensive, but on the other hand, it's a great way to consume CBD and THC to me, because it's fast acting, fast onset, and it's just enjoyable. It's something that's social, right?
I would totally agree with you on that. And I'll be completely honest with you, and Jordan might agree. I'm one of the heaviest users of cannabis products there is. You put me up with Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg's gonna have a run for his money. And like literally,
Listen, you and Biscuit need to get together. This dog can't get enough.
We'll take it to the show.
I mean,
we'll
she
take it
actually
to the
does.
show.
She loves the CBD, a little drops of CBD oil in her food, to loosens her stools, is what she tells me. Anyway,
it's an anti-inflammatory. Every
right.
Person or animal on the planet experiences inflammation. So it's a A to Z drug for everybody, or plant, not a drug. But going back to the to your point about shipping water and shipping the cost of shipping weight. There's 20 milligrams. I should have put this on the label. I'll do that on the next round, but there's 20 milligrams of CBD in this can, right? The difference between this CBD product and what's in this CBD product is that this one has 1,500 milligrams of CBD. This one only has 20 milligrams. This is $200. This is $2. This is made with a nano-emulsified CBD, which means your body is going to absorb 100. It's 100% of bioavailable to your body, which means your body is absorbing 100% of it as soon as it touches one of the receptors in your esophagus, or as you drink, kind of like the way alcohol works. Your body only absorbs maybe 10% of this. So 1,500 milligrams, you're paying $200. Your body was absorbing 10% of it. To get the same amount, just buy 10 of these at $2 a pot, or $3, even $3 a pot. It's $30. You get 200 milligrams of CBD that your body is actually totally absorbing, versus paying $300 or $200 for a 1,500 milligram CBD tincture bottle.
Right.
Yeah, the price differences are just like, it starts to make sense when you start to look at it like that. And that's where I can see like companies like Constellation or, or Canopy going when they start to enter this market, is because, yeah, it's, it's you got a lot of package here, but
Right.
from a standpoint of me drinking, 2 of these a day or 3 of these a day on the CBD water side, just to get my daily CBD regimen, it's, you can spend $150 a month and get, a 4-pack every day and drink it and get your daily
Right.
worth of CBD and, pay.
That's an interesting the math that you walked us through just now, because I always had a little, I think I and others have sticker shock when you see, well, shit, it's $5 a can. How does that make any sense? Because we're always looking through a beer lens, or seltzer lens, where it's like, you get a little sticker shock. But when you do compare it per milligram, it does make more sense, I would think. And I just don't enjoy tinctures. You have to, just like you putting it under your tongue. I feel like I'm taking medicine. I don't want to take medicine.
Yeah.
Taking medicine's for old people. Do I look old to you, Jake?
No,
Don't answer that question.
You look young and healthy.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Jake, let's talk about, obviously you've spent most of your time up in the Pacific Northwest in the cannabis industry. And can you kind of tell us a little bit how, cannabis beverages are in a more developed market like Oregon? Have they taken off there, or is it still kind of, a slower moving niche in, retail? And are they any more available in a state like Oregon too than down here in Texas? Or are they still kind of just limited to dispensaries, maybe liquor stores?
It's a very interesting market in Oregon in terms of the Oregon Liquor Control Commission and CBD products. Unfortunately, the Oregon Liquor Control Commission wildly separates the Department of Agriculture up there, which handles the hemp program, and the OLCC program. So you don't see as many seltzer products or drink products in Oregon because of the level of, if you're going to produce some sort of product like this seltzer, it's just hard to change, for example, an entire brewery there in Oregon to create seltzer only products with CBD in it, because then you have to get licensing for the CBD, the OLCC portion of it, and therefore you don't see a huge retail presence on the OLCC dispensary side. However, you do see a lot of CBD drinks in stores like Whole Foods, local C-stores up there. However, the drinks that do hit the Oregon dispensary market sell like hotcakes, because there's just not very many of them, and there's a huge demand. So going back to that, actually, when it does go recreationally legal in any state or federal state, your baby boomer or your the corporate gentleman or lady might not be interested in smoking something. They'd be more interested in trying something like, okay, this thing has 0 calories, it's got hemp-derived terpenes, it's all natural flavoring. They're going to be more inclined to try a product like this versus a product like vaporizing this hemp pin or whatever. And that's why you go into markets like California. I actually a good friend of mine introduced me to the founder of a company called Cann, CANN. And they're
I think we've heard of them.
You've probably heard of Cann. So I've spoken long.
Yeah. They have really good graphics and good marketing from what I've seen.
I love their product. They are a great company, great owners, great everybody that I've met so far has been awesome. And eventually I actually want to go move to the smaller little cans so that people can try different products, and but that's a whole thing.
Right. And you can charge $5 for the same little can.
Same little can.
I mean, right, Jordan, isn't that the one that haven't we seen they're
Yeah.
real expensive per
Yeah,
unit,
they're
and
pretty big.
but they're kind of the leader,
They are.
one of the leaders, right?
So I've seen, like, I've gotten luckily to be a part, not be a part, but like see insight into certain metrics. And, California is a completely different market than Oregon. It's by far way more difficult cannabis market to operate in, because operating anywhere in California, any business is nearly impossible.
I mean, can you even make a can?
Yeah, yeah. If you can't,
Yeah,
yeah,
you have to buy it back for $2.
exactly.
I'm exaggerating, but no, I get it. I get it. But yeah, it's such a huge market, which is a shame. But it's this, for what I read, it's so hard to make money because the illicit market is still alive and well. And
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they have just fueled more. The laws that they've passed in California have done nothing but fuel the black market more. And
right, well, we're going to decriminalize it and tax the shit out of it. That we're going to do the two. I mean, right, Jordan, we wrote about this years ago. Jake, what's your game? What's your end game? What are you thinking about? Kind of looking forward.
trying to just grow my in Oregon right now in terms of the cannabis. One of the most efficient operating models there is in terms of what we do is cost per pound. Times below the I'm getting an internet thing here, about 4x the national average in terms of cost per pound. So we work with the brands and our partners in a couple brands that are large in the retail sector. And so I'm just taking my model that we do now from the growing standpoint and applying our technologies and going state to state. Right now, we're expanding down to Florida into a 500,000 square foot facility down there, where we acquired one of the medical licenses for cannabis, full blown cannabis, 33 locations, et cetera. And so that's given me a huge insight into, like, what a state like Florida is going to do, or what a state like Texas will eventually do, and what it looks like in terms of tackling a project of that magnitude. And long story short, I'll be honest with you, I want to be one of the biggest cannabis guys there is. But I've seen I've seen everything. We've worked with companies like Curaleaf and Cresco and things of that nature, and we love them and great clients. But they're, at the end of the day, there's a bunch of companies other than them that have unlimited budgets, and they're just absolutely struggling to your point, make a profit or make any money because of all the taxes, all the hurdles and whatnot. And that's why you see these companies that are losing hundreds of millions of dollars posting multi-billion-dollar valuations still, because of
even at those incredible valuations, they're still probably cheap because they're still trading at a discount because they can't get banking and they can't write off expenses, and they're basically losing money on purpose just to hold a seat table for if and when.
Absolutely. That's 100%. So you'll see companies like Curaleaf and Canopy, and what they're doing right now to enter the US market is basically just acquiring a foot presence. They don't care if they lose money, because the day it goes federally legal here in the United States, you're going to see, you saw 100x on revenue for Canopy, and they got a $15 billion valuation back in 2018. And you can only imagine what the numbers are going to be for the US federal, entire federal government. And then what that entails once medical companies start to get involved and starts to standardize THC products around the medical side, because that's going to be a whole massive industry. And standardizing processes.
THC is really what people are after at this point. Let's, maybe psychedelics down the road, but let's just take one product at a time. Mm-hmm. So let's say we get to decriminalized THC, banking comes in, states get it all figured out. In most places you can sell it. Hey, there's still parts of Texas and Mississippi that you can't buy a beer. So, this is still, it's going to be piecemeal for the next 100 years at least. So let's not get ahead of ourselves and just think it's going to be a free for all. Yep. It's going to be very fragmented, state by state, even county by county. And getting down to the molecular level of THC, I think you're right. Once the farmers, and when I say farmers, I'm talking about Monsanto and the pharma guys. When I say pharma guys, I mean Pfizer and Coke and Pepsi and Diageo and Constellation, and everybody gets together, how to get THC into people's bodies the way they want it. And I think brands is the way that happens, right? Like when prohibition was repealed in 1933, there were very few brands, except, that's why Seagram's is this huge brand, because it was in Canada. It was legal through the whole time. And that's, so people will gravitate toward brands that aren't even in existence yet. This is what I do on the podcast, by the way. I just give long lectures to people and hope that people are still listening. So sorry, Jake. I'm sorry. Am I saying any sense though? Because I just want to make sure I'm not. That kind of feels the way things are going right now. A lot of money, and everybody's just kind of holding their chips and looking at everybody else's chips and seeing what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. I think there's a huge so many opportunities. And, I just mentioned all those huge conglomerates, but I think there'll be a ton of small and mid-sized players too, just like there are in beer. It's going to be fun.
Oh yeah. That's been, and just from my perspective, I mean, I've seen literally every single cannabis company, not every single, but pretty much every single big, small, mom and pop, publicly traded cannabis company and how they operate and the mistakes they've made. And there's my opinion, there's small brands, like there's this company called Cookies, for example. That's one of my partners, but they have mastered the retail industry. I mean, every time they open up a retail location, they hit $200,000 to $300,000 on opening day. Jeez. And a rolling $30,000 to $40,000 average. This is in a market like Oregon.
That's like a good Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah.
I mean, shit. Right.
When you multiply that by like 1,000 stores in Texas, you'll sustain a market like that, $100,000 per day average kind of thing. And that's just on the recreational side. That doesn't include the medical side, all the industry. One of the biggest, people don't realize this, one of the biggest carbon footprints right now in the world right now is indoor growing. And that's included with cannabis. And, so that's just going to make that industry. And that's what I also work with is the technology sides, the Pixes and the X's, and, making those sides more efficient, because that's just where it has to go. Because then you're going to have all these companies trying to grow, these massive cannabinoids, like on a pharmaceutical level, and they're not going to hit their same molecular structure, their same molecular outcome every time, because they're trying to grow something on the outdoors, some weird environment thing happens.
Okay. And so that was exactly going to be my next question is, because I've always said, well, why is everybody spending all this money on this indoor bullshit when we have this tons of we're the most prolific farm country in the world. We have sunlight, we have beautiful soil, but that's what I've kind of been reading, is that it's harder to control the specific strains of what you end result when you're out sun grown.
Absolutely. And that's where we we came up with, not to go into a completely different tangent, but we came up with an artificial intelligence system that works with visuals to kind of detect strains on the indoor side to create a genetic blueprint that's perfect for each one of our strains. Because to your point, replicating these things on the outdoor level, it's super hard to do. You can grow massive amounts of cannabis and so there are companies that grow massive amounts outdoor and do nothing but extract it for just straight pure THC. But when it comes to the actual medical benefits of the plant, it's really a mix of the terpenes and THC to CBD, and how those ratios are mixed within that certain plant to make that gives you the actual the medical benefit, or what you're feeling, or this what they call the synergistic effect.
Analgesic.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, you're good. But that's the that's where you get all the effects from. THC and CBD just straight alone. I mean, you're going to get high, but you're not going to really get the true expression of the plant. And so when it comes to the
Right.
medical industry, that's where it's going to become extremely important, where they have to replicate, Pfizer has to replicate their, I'm just throwing out names, but Mango OG anti-inflammatory pill that's extracted from this. It works so well because it has X, Y, and Z molecules arranged in a certain way throughout its entire process. It can only be derived from that certain plant, given those certain environmental factors indoors every single time. And that's where it becomes really, really tricky, because the cannabis plant is one of the most responsive plants there is on the planet. Like you can yell at it and something will happen to the plant, kind of thing. And so,
I mean, I bought a new house and I was over there this morning. There might be some pot blowing right there, Jordan. You're going to have to come over later in the break and take a look, because I'm very suspicious. It might just be hemp, but it looks suspicious, and they're mixed in with the bamboo. Anyway, we'll cut that in post. But okay, so Jordan, go ahead. I know you had a question.
No, I was just talking about what you were saying. So it's not possible really for medical grade cannabis to be grown outdoors, is what it sounds like.
It can, to an extent, if there's a company that has developed a molecular mixture to where they're just taking straight CBD distillate and straight CBD distillate and certain cannabinoids and mixing them together to get a certain blend, but that never produces. And I'll say this to anybody, that's still, you can't replicate what is naturally produced by the plant every time. And there's certain genetic expressions that these plants give off that you can trigger and replicate every single time if you know the visual markers and the data to look for. And that's where I can go on a completely different tangent on the technology side.
Didn't you say that y'all have drones or something that go and look at?
You know what?
Take pictures of the plants.
Can I do a screen share real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
This is a full function podcast. Sweet. Right, Biscuit? Wake up, Biscuit. We got visuals. God dang it, Biscuit. I'm sorry. She's usually it's Monday. She hasn't recovered. She's a little hungover as usual.
So this is our AI system right here. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So this is my facility in Oregon in real time. This is Grow Room 1. And so what these robots do is they go above the canopy and they use a process called spectral granular imaging, and using infrared, the sensors from my automation system that detect the densities of the growth in the buds, sap flow, which is water flow throughout the plant, leaf temp sensors, et cetera, basically takes all this information and builds a genetic blueprint of what we're actually doing to these plants and how these plants are responding. All right, come here, you son of a gun. And before, we were just kind of like set it and forget it. We'd put the environments in the room, and then before we would just get a randomization of a random outcome of results like 60 to 90 days later to say like, hey,
you got a lot going on there, man. So yeah, okay. This is so cool. I mean, this is like in real time, like
yes. So yeah, this is real time. Every single taking active, you'll see different colors of genetics here. Like this is green, purple, green. And so before, we were just putting environmental set points in this room, and then 60 days later after we harvest, we get the end result, test the plant, like, oh wow, this plant yielded X amount per light and gave us X amount of THC with the X terpene, XYZ terpene ratio. And that's what we would get. Now we in real time can see what these actual plants are doing, and like from a health standpoint and biological standpoint, to say like, hey, this is what these environmental factors, these foods and things that we're doing to the plant is actually doing to the plant in real time, rather than us finding out 60 to 90 days later what the end result is. So what this starts to do,
So this could be like these learnings that you get
there you go.
from this could be at a competitive advantage, because then you'll say, hey, this seed with this fertilizer, I'm just talking out of my ass, but with this amount of water and sunlight does this specific thing, right? And you kind of you're mapping out what does to what, cause and effect.
Absolutely. So from a retail standpoint, so from a technological standpoint, after enough harvests and times, this will take, say we have a strain called cookies and mango OG and grapefruit. Let's just use those as an example. This will start to tell us in real time, like, hey, this is this cookie strain is set, this certain sector right here that I'm highlighting is set to actually measure these bud growth densities, count them up, and give us an estimate within 95% accuracy of what we're producing in real time within 2 weeks of flower. This also applies to other vegetables and crops, mind you, in terms of like HEB and stuff like that. We'll go that in a whole different tangent. But this is an extremely valuable tool for production and timing and just inventory management. So imagine we have 1,000 retail locations across the nation, and we have this inventory management system. And our inventory management system on the retail level says, you guys have 1,000 pounds of cookies in the Northeast sector, and you have 10,000 pounds of mango OG in the Northeast sector. Then you have 1,000 pounds of grapefruit. Oh crap. Our systems are telling us that you have another 10,000 pounds of mango OG growing in, it's going to be ready in precisely 42 days. And you only have 250 pounds of estimated weight for mango OG and another 1,000 pounds of grapefruit OG growing in our estimated grow platforms across the country. Oh shoot, what we need to do is run a crazy sell on what's the one that has 10,000 mango OG. We have 10,000 pounds of it. Run a crazy sell on mango OG and raise the prices of cookies and grapefruit. And then, you know what? Tell the nursery level immediately to start killing, not killing, but to reduce the number of mango OG plants, because we have an influx of inventory coming up the pipeline. We need to increase cookies. We need to increase grapefruit. And you know what? Also introduce this new strain called Runts, because we released this strain and it's gaining great traction on our retail level, because on our retail level, we have an actual system where if someone picks up like a drink or a product, we know how long they picked it up for and whether they bought it or not. So that starts to get us metrics with that. So from a competitive standpoint, when you start to combine like all of these aspects, and you're like a big publicly traded company that has, 1 million plus square feet across the, even 100,000 square feet across the country, you need a system like this. Otherwise, you're going to have major inventory management problems like Constellation, a Canopy, not to say name.
Yeah, I mean that came out,
But,
that sure bit him in the ass. What was it? It was just was it $1 billion write down or something like?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Well, that is amazing. Wow. And so you've really, I mean, I get a sense now of why indoor growing, of course, is would be preferable for high grade plants like this.
Oh yes, absolutely. And then so going back to the outdoor level, unfortunately the environment's going to get a little worse, and it's going to just, when we don't know what the environment's going to do over the next 50 years. The average farmer right now is in his late 50s, early 60s. So in 10 years, you're going to have a massive, and this is like 85% of the farming population across the world. You're going to have a massive shortage of farmers. And then you're going to have a huge increase in problems in an environmental standpoint of like producing and whatnot, food. And that's when like you get real big problems. So it's crazy that, this technology has actually helped us reduce the amount of inputs that we went from doing 17 inputs on the nutrient side down to 3 inputs, because this AI system literally started to detect what we could do after learning so much to get the same exact result, but with less inputs, because it started to say, hey, you're using too much stuff in this room. You're using, too much power, using too much light. Another cool thing that the system does is detects ailments in the plants or like bugs. And you have if you have a massive canopy like this, and this is honestly this is a pretty large room. It's about 1,800 square feet. But if you have like hundreds of thousands of square feet or a million square feet, like canopy or constellation or cureleaf, Cresco, one little problem, like if like in this little sector, these plants are about 8 feet tall. So you can't see what's on top of these plants. It's impossible for anybody to go, even if you had 20 people in here working full time. So what this system also really does and excels in doing is detects anomalies in the plants that might cause it to cause a catastrophic failure. Like, oh shoot, there's spider mites right here. And we could detect the signs of that. Or, oh shoot, there's a hermaphroditing plant. Hermaphroditing plant's a plant that turns male, and there's nothing but females in the room. So one male is just going to come up and screw everything up like it naturally does in real life. But what that does is a male plant.
I mean, that is, boy, that's a metaphor, isn't it, for real life?
Isn't that crazy? So one male plant in this room will cause this whole room to seed out, and then you're screwed. You can't. That'd be, in some markets, this would be $1 million+ loss per room. And so what this does is it just helps, it just scans the rooms to say like, okay, you got healthy plants. Not only are they healthy, they're growing within their predicted projection rate that they were doing last time. There's no bugs. There's nothing but there's X amount of strains. We can run tests and research and development in certain sectors of this room done. And where I was going with the food and indoor production side is what we're trying to do and achieve is net zero production. And if we can produce net zero production and commercialize it for cannabis, it's definitely applicable to food. And these kinds of technologies just help us get to there. And it's crazy. This came from the cannabis industry. This combination. This is actually just a small piece of the automation system. So if the AI system detects an anomaly in in a plant or certain area in the warehouse, it'll actually run have a automation system that it's connected to every single electrical output and component in my facility that controls my environments and the actual power coming in, and we'll run diagnostics amongst all of those components to see if one of those components is causing the environmental anomaly, and then give a recommendation in real time to fix the problem before it happens. And that's just it's kind of cool where it's going and where it can go.
Is just, it's kind of like this is maybe not a perfect analogy, but it's kind of like advances in porn really made the internet better.
Yeah.
And kind of like advances in high dollar cannabis farming is going to make our entire food supply with advanced technology. But farming itself would have never even happened if that people didn't settle down to make beer and wine.
Yep. Thanks, man. And so and with the system, you can go back, and I'm going back, let me go back 15 days to this same little section right here. That's that same plant back on November 16th, 2021. You can just keep going back, and
they're like your little children. You got to watch them grow up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And from
them to slaughter.
Yeah. They're about to make their sacrifice. Oh, they'll grow up again.
Yeah. Well, tell me, okay, Jordan, I know you have a question, but we also need to let you go because we touched on a little bit about energy consumption, and I know that like Bitcoin, others are getting shit for burning a lot of electricity just to mine Bitcoin, which what's the point, and some people would make the same thing. We're burning a lot of electricity. What is the industry doing to kind of address those problems?
That's exactly what we're trying to stay ahead of the curve, is because there's states like California and Massachusetts that are going to place mandates on the kind of lighting that you can use. For example, high pressure sodium bulbs are like the industry standard right now, and LEDs are kind of coming into play. But LEDs, I mean, historically have not, in my opinion, been as effective at producing the quality flower that we'd like to see. So it's been hard to make a transition to go from a high pressure sodium to LEDs. And that's what states like California and Massachusetts are kind of mandating, saying, hey, like, you can't even use high pressure sodiums anymore. You have to go to LEDs. You have to use these processes. And, you know, as a grower and company, I would just be absolutely scared if, you know, you have a completely standardized procedure around high pressure sodiums. And, you know, that's just the way it needs to go, period. Because, you know, right now, indoor grow, and especially on the cannabis side, it's one of the biggest carbon footprints there is. So we have to figure out ways to offset the use and offset the power and create more efficient practices. And so that's where, you know, this technology on the automation and the AI machine learning side kind of came into play, because it taught us that just growing certain plants, and, you know, any plants in general, you can detect what these plants actually really, really need. And you can cut back on power use, you can cut back on nutrient use, and you can create a truly closed loop system that's, you know, net zero, that can be deployed, you know, right up the street or on top of an HEB. You know what I mean? Right. That's going to be like, that's going to be the future, is developing these systems that are not only on, you know, you can put these things on top of, you know, buildings and whatnot, or 3D print them even. Like it's about creating a thermal, it's not about, but there's many other factors, and you can create a very thermally efficient building that, you know, sips power and, you know, produces tons of food, and you can put it in your backyard. You can, again, attach it to these massive parking lots that aren't being used right now. And that's only because we figured out that you can do this because we had to, because we just financially could not survive, you know, having, for example, our cost per pound being $800, and now the average price of indoor weed in Oregon right now is $800 right now. You know, you can't survive. And so luckily, you know, we've made it and developed methods because of that survival, that, you know, we've figured out ways to grow just as good as cannabis or hemp or anything for a fifth of the price or a fourth of the price. And that's where
you can't just put like a giant like magnifying glass on the roof to just magnify the sun, or
not on LED lights now. They have little miniature magnifying glasses, and you know, there's tons of methods that you can actually do that. So you're
it's a lot of tinfoil pointed towards, I don't know,
reflecting
sunlight, right, Jordan? It's all about the sun.
It's just sunshine. Okay, well, wrapping up, Jake, and, you know, it may tie into energy, but what do you think is the biggest obstacle moving forward? Do you think it's energy? Do you think it's black market, legalization, you know, still just kind of slowly moving along? What would you like to, what scares you the most moving forward?
Right now, it's very important that the legislators write laws that promote the cannabis industry and its businesses, because right now the laws make it so difficult to do cannabis. It makes it so expensive that it allows the black market to thrive. And so you have two problems. You have problems where companies that are, I don't see this as my fear, but if I was another company looking to expand into a new market that has a standardized procedure that works really well in California and Oregon, and you want to try and produce that same thing in Florida, my biggest fear would be how am I going to ensure that process is replicated on the same level in California and Florida or Massachusetts? And that's where my technologies kind of come into play and to mitigate that issue. That's my biggest fear. But my biggest fear among them all is, number one, is the legislative part, because the legislative part is just, they drastically affect, you know, our NOI or our revenue stream. It's like in Oregon, for example, you know, they place a limit on the amount of cannabis you can buy. You can buy an ounce of cannabis a day. To some, that would be a lot. To me, that's not a lot. You know, I know people who smoke ounces of cannabis every other day, or you know what I mean? The problem with that is that you have people that want to buy a pound of weed for a discounted rate rather than going in and paying over and over again. Nobody wants to go into the liquor store twice a week. You know what I mean? So like,
right. You know what it starts looking bad.
Must look a little strange when you go into the liquor store twice a week, and just the tabooity of it, the taboo-ness of it, of having to go into the liquor store, the cannabis store multiple times a week. That just starts with the legislative level. And I've been trying to work with the legislators in Oregon for the longest time. I go, you want to put the black market on its butt, allow unlimited purchases on the retail level, because who cares? Honestly, like who cares what these people, there's nothing you can do because the black market is still there. So they're either going to go get their massive amount of weed on the black market and nobody's going to receive their taxes for it, or they can buy it through the state and the state can receive their taxes for it. There's to close this off real quick. That in 2019, there's 3 million pounds on the Oregon market, and it's like more as a pound of weed for every single person in the state. Well, a year later, that 3 million pounds just disappeared off the metric system, basically. It got wasted. Like got wasted. Like,
Where'd it go?
Where did it go?
It's like it's Smokey and the Bandit all over again.
Exactly. And it's only because that these legislators make it impossible for the real medical buyers or the real people that want to take the couple pounds of weed and do whatever they want with it. Like, you're just creating that opportunity for the cartels to come in there and seize that opportunity, when you can just sell that 3 million pounds, times 2,000 a pound's like $6 billion. That's like 1.2 billion.
Incredible. And like you said, nobody's going to go and buy a bunch of weed at a dispensary to resell because you're paying the highest price already. No, where's the margin?
Yeah,
I mean, you're using it for private use unless you're a complete imbecile, in which that's
a lot
fine.
of them are, and let the state collect on that imbecility. Like don't let the guy in the black market just increase the difficultness of trying to do business in the cannabis industry. So
even shitty black market weeds is pretty good these days. Gosh, Jake, thank you for being on. We kept you too long, but I appreciate it, especially during these holidays. This is very fascinating. I am personally on a mission for 2022 to learn as much as I can about the cannabis market. And I know all the Beer, Wine, and Spirits listeners are eager to learn about it, maybe get into it, find out how to get into it. Any parting thoughts, Jordan and Jake?
Not for me. I think we
you don't have a message for America, Jordan? You don't have any message of hope?
Stay tuned for next week.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
No, I really appreciate it, Harry and Jordan, y'all putting this together. And I'm an open book at any time. I've got tons of knowledge in this industry, tons of insight, direct insight into big companies that I can share to an extent.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I really do. I'm all right, guys. Well, thank you for drinking beer. Thanks for being on, and happy holidays. Absolutely. And we'll be in touch. Take care, guys.